Hey everybody, it's John. Last month I started a series of videos about the production of Eon Blade. There was a 2-week shoot back in April and May for Eon Blade, and we documented the whole thing. I started a series of videos last month presenting kind of all the behind the scenes of what went on. This month I would interrupt that because something came up. Somebody brought this up, and I kind of had forgotten about it. When we did the proof of concept for Eon Blade, I introduced this new weapon that Jitni carries. A lot of people were curious about how it was done. So I kind of thought I would just talk about that today. You first see it. It's in a special drop holster. The whole reason for the weapon was that I actually wanted a way to break up Jitni's costume. I kind of don't like symmetrical designs, so I came up with a new design for Jitni's costume where it's got the knee pad on one knee, and then on the other leg is this drop holster. Then of course I had to come up with what was going to be in that holster, and the idea that I landed on was a Nunchaku. But I didn't want to just have it be that, because I didn't want to just do things that were made popular in the past. Bruce Lee kind of popularized this weapon. So I came up with this idea for a weapon that is carried as a nunchaku like this in the holster, but then it can click together into a baton. And then once it's in that position, it can extend into 3 batons, into a 3-section staff. So there was a whole period of just internal development where I drew lots of pictures of this thing, tried to imagine how it would work, how it would be accomplished on screen. It seemed like the easiest and most believable effect that we could do is to just go back to techniques that were used by people over a century ago. Like, it's all going to just be accomplished through clever cutting. What that meant that I could do was that I could just have 3 different weapons constructed that were entirely separate props, and then use clever cutting camera tricks to make it appear like the extensions and the separations were happening, but were actually just cuts between 3 different weapon props. But I still had to have the weapons. So of course I went to my friend Evil Ted Smith, who has done work for my films in the past, and he's just a close friend of mine. For example, he did the machine guns, coming out of the hood of the Paraclete in Danger Element, and he also played the Cyborg Man that appears in that movie. His approach pretty much was to take foam training weapons that kind of already existed, but then he made foam caps for them, and then he sealed them and painted them with this very durable flex paint. And then of course I needed the holster. There was this guy by the name of Joel Zaruba who's been following my work for a long time, and he actually makes a lot of tactical gear. And I contacted him about making a drop holster for Nunchaku. And he was like, of course I can do that. And you can see it here with the weapon prop in it. And he did an amazing job. It actually, it looked nicer than this when he mailed it to me, but Cassandra, the art director, weathered it heavily before we filmed with it. It fastens with a seatbelt buckle, which I love. Makes it very simple. It's adjustable, just like a regular belt. You can see that this is the lower leg strap for the drop holster aspect of it. And of course, his Zulu nylon gear. So the kind of rule that I made up for Jitni was that he carries his weapons, but he doesn't take the weapon out unless there's a weapon drawn on him. And then from there you get the transformations. I just thought that would be something different. I've never seen something like that. I'm not going to say I'm the first one to do it, but I think it's something new, something sort of mystifying for the audience. And it's also supposed to be kind of like mystifying for the opponent. The weapon transforms into different functions. He's got the nunchaku, which is great for just beating on people, but then it can turn into the baton, and you can actually, solid block other weapons and things like this, or use it like a normal sort of police baton, and then it could transition into the 3-section staff for reach and for other just trapping techniques, and so it seemed like it could be theoretically practical, at least in Jitni's ridiculous universe. The final challenge was making sure that I was somewhat proficient with the 3-section staff, now that I had decided that was going to be shown in the film. I was decent with the nunchaku, although it was difficult to figure out how to choreograph with it because it has its own way of moving, and it's difficult to slow down. So that was tricky to choreograph, but I knew how to use the weapon. The baton is pretty self-explanatory. I had that all figured out already. But the 3-section staff is a very weird weapon. And there are different techniques that are shown in movies and by martial arts teachers and so on. It falls between 2 categories. One of them is very showy. It's like what you see in wushu performances and in a lot of movies too. There's a lot of movements that are very dazzling, but you probably wouldn't use them in a fight, and they're kind of difficult to learn. So I avoided a lot of that. Then the other is the very practical aspect of it, which is less flashy. And you actually see a lot of this with Gordon Lau, who learned 3-section staff for several of his movies, but most famously in 36th Chamber of Shaolin, where his character essentially invents the 3-section staff. So I did look at a lot of Gordon Lau for examples of how I might use the weapon, mostly because I had a short time to learn how to use it, and then also because I like Jitni to stay. It's a fantastical realm of on-screen martial arts fighting, but it's also more based on practicality, and that helps me, depending, if my health goes up and down. Sometimes I can't do bigger, flashier moves. There's always that sort of range that Jitni stays in where I can mostly do all of those moves, and they're somewhat believable. Now, how were the weapon transformations done? Like I said, it was all camera tricks and cutting. Like, for instance, the first transition you see, Jitni spins the nunchaku down and then back up, and it clicks together into the baton. It's quite simple. I just did the same thing twice with both weapons. I did it once with the nunchaku and then also once with the baton. There's a camera move, and Justin's very good at this, right? As soon as I explained it to him, he got it right away. So you just do that same exact camera move over and over. It would follow the weapon down and back up, and then switch weapons, do the same thing. He'd follow it down, back up. And during that camera move, you could very cleverly hide a cut in there, right? So when it comes back up, it cuts. And now it looks like the nunchaku has solidified into a baton. And it looks great. And a lot of that has to do with Justin's ability with the camera. A little bit later, Jitni is fighting a guy using the baton. And then he makes this move like this, and the baton extends into the 3-section staff. And the idea is supposed to be that these batons are all hidden inside of the single baton and all their chains. Of course, this is not possible in reality, but it looks like it happened. So I just did the move like that with the baton, and then we cut to another angle where I did the same thing, but with the 3-section staff. And I just cut at a moment where you couldn't see all 3 sections. Of course, the proof of concept is actually those scenes are included in Eon Blade as a whole. And there's a scene later where you actually see the weapon being prepared by these monks, and you see it, more close up, where they pull the weapon apart. The part where the 3-section staff goes up inside of the baton, and same thing, that was all done with just clever cutting. If some of you are familiar with my work and you were wondering how that was done, I hope this answered some of your questions. Once again, I have to say thanks so much to all of my patrons and for the Kickstarter backers for believing in me and making all of this stuff possible. Really feels like we're doing something special together. And I hope that we can do it for many, many more years. Goodbye until next time.